Okay, so today we're going to do something a little different. And I'm going to do a lot of these things because these are important. It's terribly uncomfortable because I'm going to go through how to emotionally activate my own regret. My regret in life. There's elements of regret. Now, there's a few different ways to do this, of course. I'll tell you something. It's terribly uncomfortable. I mean, looking at regret and what regret actually is, and isolating something that's inside of you that pinches the regret inside and activates it, and then it wants to just come out and just spew itself out. And at the same time, there's the interaction of the acting, which would then it would interplay with, right? So, but this is what talent actually is. And I've said this for decades. I mean, when I say decades, I mean I've said this for a long, long time. About acting and to people who have asked me about acting, and big people in the industry and not so big people in the industry. And what matters to me is that well, basically, I want you to learn from what I'm working on and what I'm doing. And I want everyone to be able to have the information. So first of all, if you're going to choose to work with regret, it's gonna it's gonna hit you. I don't know if you notice sometimes with the videos, sometimes I'll look slightly dizzy just before the videos. And that's the emotion. The emotion just, it's something spurs, it hits, something hits, and then I feel this wash of some sort of thing coming. And this is what we're going into. We're going to work at a great friend of mine called regret. Now, why do I say this? Regret is my friend in acting. I befriend my regrets so I can then activate them and be able to have them in my acting. So let's do this. I'll tell you, you are not the only one in this world that feels uncomfortable dealing with putting emotions into acting. Now, I'm comfortable with it, but at the same time, there's this you never know what's going to come up. You just don't know what you've actually activated. And this is just the truth of acting. This is this style of acting. This is truthful acting. Your acting training is actually important to me, and that's why I'd like you to join me at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesdays and Thursdays for my live feed. If you find the information on my website, you can actually join the live feed. I can send you a link and you can actually come on and talk to me face to face. And you can actually, we'll do emotional preparations together. So we can actually work to be able to access your emotions and help you be able to put emotions into your acting work. So, being clear, it's emotionally activating regret with emotional preparation, right? So first of all, there's a few different ways to do this. One is you want to gain your own regret. So you work with something that you've regretted in life. And you isolate something that you regret in life. Now, this could be any type of experience that gets, when you think about it, when you work with it, when you start to recollect that experience, the end result of that experience is a wash over you of regret. There's this element of regret. And then you work with this, and we'll do this together. You work with it to be able to isolate that element and get deeper and deeper and deeper in that element that's closer to the part of regret of that memory. And then you pinch that part of the memory. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you do a what if. What if such and such happened to you, and you fall into that imaginary belief? What if such and such happened to you, and could you believe in it, and then does it actually incite some sort of emotional response internally? We're talking about self-internalization of emotion. We're talking about activating our own emotional life. Then what will happen automatically when we do this and when we work with the process, then we actually will, in the interaction, see that that emotion will actually bleed into the work in a healthy way. Sometimes it will be strikingly obvious that you're going through a pain, or there's something that's recollecting that's a painful memory, or there's something that the what if is spurred over, or there all of a sudden you might even feel like you're reliving close to the real life experience that you've had in the past that caused the regret. That's all just absolutely, that's okay. It all works because what it does is it's working within the ballpark of emotion that you've desired to get into. So the other thing I recommend, and obviously I've got the book and such, and there's more in that, but you can tie the what if to a real life experience. So you tie a what if to a real life experience, so you've got more of yourself in the experience that you're recalling or you're remembering or you're imagining. And then what that will do is that will even further isolate the element inside of you that pinches, right? So this is like the work of it, to be able to do this personal work. Now, there's a circumstance in my life that I've had in my life, and I've had lots of different circumstances. Or I could have married somebody. They offered to marry me. So I could work with that and start to go into how the imagination of how my life would be different right now if I had married that person. What kind of life it would have been. What kind of good things, what kind of bad things I would have had or been able to do, right? I might have been one of the top producers in Hollywood right now if I had have done what I with marriage. And I decided not to. And it wasn't something that I thought was secure in terms, although it wasn't really something that I thought was, there was reservations that I had about it. And what I can do is I can go into that regret and I can think to myself, well, I can first of all talk myself out of the regret. Anybody can do that. Now, this happens when we do emotional preparation, as we get into an emotion, we work with something that's real to us, and then we start talking ourselves out of it. This is not therapy. We're not here to try and, I don't need your pity, I don't need anybody feeling sorry for me. If you feel sorry, then you feel sorry. That's whatever it is. But it's not about therapy. This is about acting. This is about activating. So I have a choice to make here. I could brush off the experience or the memory or the care that the person had. I mean, there was one time I remember where I literally had no food. I was struggling. And they brought food to me and they were like, what the heck are you going to do? Like, this is like, you're like, you know, in like the greatest situation, but at the same time you're in like the suckiest situation at the same time. And it was a tough decision. And this is the thing. Now, if I go into the regret, if I activate the regret, I could only maybe start to isolate only the good things about it, even though I know that there would be bad things about, every circumstance. There's a reality to it. But if I want to isolate the regret, I could isolate the regret or even come up with a fictitious story of why I'm sorry I didn't say yes to the person or didn't, that kind of thing. So the other day, I did this thing with a different emotional preparation with Fletcher McGee, and a couple comments came in, and I appreciate it. And now the emotional preparation that I used before was from my gut. It was something that was real, and there was a lot of things to it, and there's a lot of intensity to it, and it was more closer to the actual interpretation that I would actually choose if I was working on the part. And I showed some examples of activating the emotion and then putting it into the acting. Now I have seen, I've trained with over 35 different teachers, somewhere between 30 and 40,000 acting exercises. I think it's somewhere between 8 and 10,000 students. And I'm doing a live stream. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you'd like to join me there, you're very welcome to join me. See, right now, as I'm going through this, I can feel like this, it's not vomit. It's just like this, honestly, I don't know what the future brings. I don't know. I know that I have my own integrity. Sometimes it can get in my way. I know that sometimes it's hard to take a leap of faith in an area, especially when it's an intense circumstance. I know all that. I get all of that. Now, the other thing that you should know, it's very common. I don't know if it's for other people. I know I've seen it for other people too. Sometimes nose runs when you've got emotion. It's just the weirdest thing. It's just like this. The emotions open up all of a sudden. I don't know, the cavities in the body just start opening up, something. So I could work with this script, which would be more normal in terms of what students in an acting class would choose, is that they would go into a thing that's regret. They would remember the element of almost marrying somebody. And, I don't care about famous, if people are famous, not famous. It's never been something that's I've never been enamored by it. It's just not something that I like. I like acting. I like to be able to see people putting their truth. I like to be able to see people putting emotion into their work. So I could talk out and work out and go in deeper to the regret of that circumstance, of thinking back to the heartache that I've felt in some ways by not going in that direction in life, and having not taken the large leap of faith that would have been in life at the time. That would have been an enormous change in jump to be in that situation, although it maybe would have just been very comfortable. It might have been just the right adjustment. And this is part of me working with the reality to try and isolate the regret. Then what I can do now is I can actually go, no, this would have been a good decision. It would have been a good decision. And now I'm doing this to pinch out regret from my acting. I'm not doing this for therapy. This isn't something where I'm trying to determine life in terms of whether it's one way or another way. That's not what I'm doing. I'm literally working now to find something that I know can activate regret. So I'd say I have some regret activated inside of me from talking this circumstance out. And I could go deeper, but look, this is a video. There's a whole dynamic thing happening here, and I'm not just coming out to run a monologue. I'm teaching the ability to be able to find these elements. So I'm not talking myself out of a possible emotional preparation or emotional activation. I'm allowing myself to fall into the daydream, the fantasizing, the reality of making a mistake, of regretting a mistake of not marrying somebody. That would have worked out. It wouldn't have been. Maybe it would have been great. Maybe it would have been exactly what I needed. And I know that the result of that would have been, I mean, I would have been, the things would have been, there would have been a lot of positive things to it. There's no question. So I'm working to isolate that element. Now, okay, so let's look and say, I've done a little bit of that, I have a little bit of sniffles from this. So there's some kind of activation happening, right? Now, I'm going to read the Fletcher McGee of the Spin Reverse. Now, this is going to come out a little different than the other time, of course, because it's a different emotional preparation. So, she took my strength by minutes. She took my life by hours. She drained me like a feverish moon that saps the spinning world. The days went by like shadows, and the minutes wheeled like stars. And she took the pity from my heart, and it made me into smiles. She was like this hunk of sculpture's clay, and my secret thoughts were her fingers, and it lined me deep with pain. They set the lips and sagged the cheeks, and they drooped the eyes with sorrow, and my soul had entered into the clay, and fighting like seven devils, it was not mine, it was not hers. But she held it with struggles. Modeled a face that she hated and a face that it feared to see. And I beat the windows and I shook the bolts and I hid me in a corner. I hid myself in a corner because then she died and she haunted me. And then hunted me for the rest of my life. The regret hunted me and haunted me for the rest of my life. The regret of not being married and not having taken that leap of faith in life haunted me for the rest of my life. Now, I wouldn't choose to do this material this way, to be honest. I'm just showing that it can be done. I honestly don't think this is very deep, what I just did. But it's very conversational with very old language. And it's copyright free, so there's no problem there. It still tells a story. And it tells a story where I've activated myself in a regret. And I've talked myself into that I would have made a mistake if the reality was that I had gone ahead and married this person. And then I enter in an imaginary circumstance where the fact that the person I married took my strength away. How she drained me like a feverish moon. I mean, how she took the pity from my heart. I wasn't allowed to feel. How she turned me into smiles. I became like this stuck hypocrite. Now this is very interesting. This is like, I don't know, there's some weird things about it, right? So is this working deep enough? Yeah, no, I could definitely work deeper. There's definitely more things I could put in it. There's elements of this that work. There's obvious that I can get the lines down more. Usually I have dyslexia font, which is all capital letters, which helps a lot more. Not that anybody in the industry cares if anybody knows how to read or not. Which they do, but I mean, they want to see things memorized if it's possible. But the thing about this is, like, did I put the regret? Well, I put the regret that I had into the work. And I'm dumbing this down a little bit because I could really, really go into the regret even deeper. And I would suggest that you do. You know, the thing to do with this is to literally have a part like this that you're working on. Start working on elements of regret and go in and, like, see, I can feel that there's regret coming up in me now, right? Like, I can feel like there's some activation of that. So when you feel that activation starting to come up, then go and work on the lines, you know. She drained me like a feverish moon. She took my strength away, and she took my life by hours. I thought that this marriage was going to be really wonderful, but this is the result. So look, you know, obviously, you know, like the video if you would, if you want to, and share this with your friends to discuss it. And are you capable of, like, this is just literally one single emotion to go onto this script. And the problem with this is that there's literally, like I said in the other videos, there's like 20 emotional currents in this. I mean, spoon rivers have this way that a lot of times there's like this, like, multi-layer of, like, emotion, because they're summating an entire person's life. And then what happens, and this is why I'm doing this more typical work, is because, like, more typically the students will find one regret and then they'll go through the whole thing with the regret, and this is like the way that they're able to do it. And that's fine, and it's valuable. See, now what you could do also is you could go and you could say, well, look, this was one example of regret, you know, not marrying so-and-so or whatever, right? Or a regret of not taking a leap of faith in another direction, or when, I don't know, I could go into all kinds of examples. And if I could have been able to get that figured out, or if I had have worked to do that, there would have been a clearer result. But honestly, like, this is decent enough to work to start to put simple emotion into scripts. So I feel affected. I don't feel like bawl out crying. I feel like I want to just, like, go and, like, hide. You know what I mean? Like, the regret is like, it stirs up my stomach. Like, I just, like, it's like, man, like, strength by minutes. She took my life by hours. She drained me like a feverish moon that saps the spinning world. The days went by like shadows. So now, here's the other thing. I can take that circumstance and I can go, okay, well, let's craft this regret, the start of regret, to this actual Spoon River. What were the circumstances that were the reasons why I didn't want to actually marry the person? Can I put those down into the areas here? She was pushy sometimes. She sapped the spinning world. She demanded stuff that just sometimes, she was kind sometimes, but she was always calculated. You know, this is not a character. I'm not trying to badger anybody or anything. That's not the point. The point is that I can fit. And some of these things could be imaginary that you work within this that are actually believable to you. And some of it is actually like, no, this is actually what the person was like. This is like, this person was like, you could relate to this. You could literally be like, you know, at first everything looked like it was all open, but then at the point was that they lined it with deep pain. You know, have a relationship with somebody, but yet at the same time, it's not like there's hidden things within the relationship, which I don't really care for. And frankly, a lot of times there'd be a lot of things that I was tried to be communicated some stuff within the industry, and I said I didn't want to know it. Not that it doesn't come back in other ways, because it always does. But the thing is that this industry is interesting, and this would be the way I would suggest to do this. And I would go even more intense with it. I would literally go and like line by line go through that and like literally go, okay, well look, this is the start of regret. Now, you might sit down and in 2 weeks try to work with this and you don't access the same activation of regret. So you're going to have a list of different things that you regret so you can start to activate one of those things. So you can start putting regret into this. I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I mean, I'm like hesitant, like there's some regretfulness there. There's like, you know, there's some experience going on. And if it's interactive in the work, you're going to see that there's like this like hesitancy, but the hesitancy is the actual acting work. The hesitancy is the fact that I feel regret. The hesitancy is like I don't want to make another mistake like the one that I've made. Or maybe the hesitancy is that I haven't taken a leap of faith and I need to find that in the script. So these are and what kind of leap of faith could Fletcher McGee take? I mean, his entire life was like completely conquered by this woman. I mean, it says here, I mean, she was hunted. She hunted him. And then she died and haunted him. I mean, it was something more like he literally had no freedom. No, everything was controlled. So I don't know. I mean, you might have a different interpretation, but I don't see any difference except for the fact that this was something that was a completely dysfunctional relationship. I remember saying to this person that I almost married, I said, listen, I don't want to have some kind of dysfunctional relationship. And they were like shocked. They were like, shoot, they didn't know what to do. They didn't talk to me for like a week after that. I said, well look, you know, I like you, but I don't want to have some kind of dysfunctional relationship. But that's the problem, because this is the reality. We're dealing with regret. Should I have been like other people, married into whatever it was, and you know, not cared and gone out and done maybe that would have been the right choice. If it's regret, then I could choose to regret. But this is the reason why, because we're talking about something that's real, that's genuine. This is the way to kind of mine your kind of field here, to figure out how to be able to achieve it. So let me know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. How does this help you? How does it not help you? So I can start to craft these so that you can actually be able to access your own regret. Like, does it help you to be able to sit and go, you know, I'm being honest enough to be able to say, well, look, this was a circumstance I remember. This is how it was, and it actually fits this material with Fletcher McGee.